Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! And Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody, and thanks a lot for joining us here on this Monday, September 18th. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you, of course, from high atop the 18th fairway here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. And we are deep into September, college football season, late into the Major League Baseball season, and we've got all kinds of things to get to, talk about, and a great lineup as always. Don Fischer, the golden voice of the Hoosiers, joins us later in the first hour, along with Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. He'll also be with us into the second hour as well. Lots to get to. We'll hear from Tom Allen, Jeff Brom, David Jackson, the players, the main voices of the Indiana-Louisville football game, which was we'll get into that. The Colts win but lose, as Anthony Richardson has got to learn that can't take those hits in the pros. As a matter of fact, I think I heard Trevor Lawrence told him last week that, man, these hits in the NFL, they add up. Colorado State, epic television. I may be one of the few who watched that to the very end. Lots of news in college football, of course. The AP Top 25 out. One team is out out of the top 10 for the first time in 8 years. The Boogie Flan recruitment war continues, and it's coming down to a battle between the Indiana Hoosiers and the Kentucky Wildcats. Indiana makes an offer to a 2025 Nate Ament. We've got that to talk about. The Colts do win, like I said. NFL rookie Puka Nacua. You've heard of him, right? Just kidding. He sets an NFL record. He's got 25 receptions in his first 2 games. Now, the only reason I even mention that is because it breaks a record that is, how old was that, 43 years old? 1980. There was a name with the 49ers. I'd give you 5 seconds to come up with it because everyone will hit Google it. But I promise you, you would have never come up with this name, because if you think about rookies around 1980 with the San Francisco 49ers, a lot of names are probably going to come to mind, but it won't be this one. The former rookie holder, a guy named Earl Cooper. Maybe you would have got it. I don't know. But lots to talk about in addition to that. Like I said, the Indiana-Louisville football game. Woo! Appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline, of course. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore. Get more to your door by going to andymorehonda.com and get the best in new and used vehicles. #1 Honda dealer in the Bloomington area, as a matter of fact. And, of course, the family of restaurants of the Wow Food Group in and around the Bloomington and Bedford areas. Great places like Southern Stone, where you can find comfort food with a Southern flair, located right at Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. And food is incredible at all their places, as a matter of fact. Man, no sense in putzing around. The Indiana-Louisville game. Welcome aboard, everybody, on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Thanks to Fred, of course, checking in from Easton, Pennsylvania. And everyone can do so if you cannot find us on radio on any of the great stations that we're on, like 97.7 ESPN, The Ref, down in Evansville. Our good friends down on the river. Up in the region, the voice of the region, WJOB, 1230 AM, 104.7. If the region and Chicago are friends, as a matter of fact. Across the state over at Fort Wayne on 1380, The Fan. great sports town. And then back down into southern Indiana, Marengo on WBRO 89.9. And of course, if you're listening on the Fan, by the way, in Fort Wayne, make sure you stick around afterwards. Brett Rump is up next after the show. But boy, I waited all weekend and thought about that fourth down call. And I watched it. And the more I watch it, the more I cannot believe that call. On some hands I can, on other hands I cannot. On the other hand, I cannot. And if you were living under a rock, Indiana down 21-0 at halftime against Louisville, after Louisville's offense just ran roughshod over that Indiana defense that we had talked so kindly of, with good reason. And then after the game, Tom Allen was asked what was the biggest difference between Indiana being able to shut Louisville out after a first half in which they ran rampant, and he held both hands out with his fists closed, grabbing the holding sign, and said, well, there was a lot of that in the first half. He may not be lying because, buddy, that was a tale of two halves on both sides of the ball for both teams. Indiana's offense looked really damn good in the second half for most of the time. Taven Jackson throws for nearly 299 yards, nearly 300 yards in his true starting debut, which is a great sign. But it all comes down to Indiana getting the ball down to the 1.5 inch mark and just needing to get in the end zone. And when things don't work, yeah, second guessing is always going to happen. I get that. But there's a difference between second guessing and this is not second guessing. That may have been that was just a dumb call. And Tom Allen, the week before, when not once but twice he had a defender run into a punt returner, he called that stupid like 6 different times in his coach's show last Wednesday. He called it stupid twice. Post game, he called it stupid twice. I think on Monday he called it stupid twice. Well, this was stupid 80 times. All day and twice on Sunday, this call was the dumbest call you could have possibly made. They're 1.5 inches from the goal line. When the ball is snapped up into Taven Jackson's hands, he's a yard out, max. And just has to bury his head between the center and the guard, and boom, you just plow in, and it wouldn't have been stopped. I watched that play a ton over. Louisville overloaded that right side. Was their right side, Indiana's left side of the line, and the left side of the line, Indiana's line just collapsed, which didn't really affect this play because it was going to the right. But it took too long to develop. That was a 2.5 second play. You don't have 2.5 seconds unless you're throwing the ball. That was a quarterback sneak, boys. All day. And instead, it was not Josh Henderson's fault. They give him the ball 4 yards deep and want him to leap over the line like he's Walter Payton. That's why, and that's why Indiana is where Indiana is. Where does that fall? Well, in my opinion, and I hate to say this, but it starts at the top. And of course, everything starts at the top, but here's the issue I have. This is where Tom's he is a great defensive coach, a great defensive coordinator. Indiana's probably never had as good a defense as they have had under him, whether he has been the coordinator or not. It's a great defense they got put together right now. Is it top 10? No, but it's good enough. It was good enough to shut out that vaunted Louisville offense for that second half. It is good enough to win games. This offense is good enough to win games. But here's the thing. You got no margin for error. As the coaching staff has no margin for error. And yet, the coaching staff, games should not come down to one play. But guess what? When you got one play to change the game, it does. And it did. And that was just almost the most anticlimactic play I could have imagined. I mean, hell, I'd rather seen Taven Jackson just take the snap and run for the corner. He kind of made it because they had everybody packed in. They made no secret of what they were most likely going to do unless they would have tried to run some kind of bootleg, which that would have been okay too. But this reminded me of Walter Payton back in the day where he could leap from 4 yards out over guys. No. I just don't know why when you're that close, inch and a half. Taven Jackson's a big, strong kid. Just give him the ball and let them plow. There's no way. Hell, he could have taken the ball and leaped and just stretched the ball over. Easily crossing the plane. But it didn't happen. And it goes down as a loss. Now, would Indiana have gone for 2 in that situation? Very, 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 very possible. And how the game ended up then, let's say Indiana scores and they go for 2 and don't get it. I don't know. It would depend on the play call. But the play call just it's unforgivable, to be honest with you. But I go back, to me, it is because that play should have never been allowed to be called. I don't think a Nick Saban allows that call to be called. I don't think that an experienced coach with offensive knowledge allows that play to be called. The fact that Walt Bell called that play, I don't get it. But it shows why, to me, he was probably 2-22 at Massachusetts. This was not when this hire was made, it was met with a lot of, oh, okay. Well, that's why. Very ho-hum. And in the time of need, they couldn't deliver. So, that's my take on that. Had to get that out. We've got to take a break. Big thanks to Fred jumping on from Eastern Pennsylvania. Like I said, you can do so too. If you're not finding us on radio, you can do it on YouTube. Make sure you just go to @Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Kent from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Larry from Las Vegas. God bless you. You're getting we got some stuff that we're getting together that you deserve. Justin, appreciate you. He's in. Oh, we're going to talk about the pick'ems. He says he's in first place. I did not have a good week. I know that. Tony V, how are you, sir? Whitehall, Michigan. A lot of Michigan folks. A lot of Michigan Hoosier fans. Let's see. Sean, thank you very much. Foggy Yorktown, he says. Andrew, appreciate you. Look at him jumping up. People, oh boy, we got some people having some good times on the pick'ems at least. Caleb, how are you doing, sir? We'll talk about the Colts, man. They may have the best backup quarterback in the NFL. Tennis, how are you, sir? Five Lefts is on as well. Don't want to miss anybody. Robert Fozon on all the way from Ahmad Jordan, man. We appreciate you guys, Sean. Robert, the truth on up and at it as well. Doug, so many. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Good question there. Good question there. Damn it, I thought I had his phone number. Man, I cannot believe how fast that stinking first segment always goes.
You knew exactly what you were going to talk about, so I mean, I think that kind of helps.
I know, but it's all unscripted.
Yeah.
I'm just laying it out. Damn.
There was as much grief as we give Walt Bell, though, and this is just the way my brain
works
always.
Nope.
Now, listen, they're opening up the playbook. This is not what we've seen.
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
For some reason,
John, resend the link to Don, please. He is having an issue with it.
Sure.
It stopped you from embarrassing yourself supporting Walt Bell.
I'm not supportive of him being.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
I'm going to say my point again is that at least he's opening up the damn playbook. I mean, I haven't seen any Indiana quarterback throw downfield like that since Michael Penix has been here.
Haven't had the time to. Oh, they've called the plays. They just haven't been able to complete them. If I have to do Don by phone, I can.
That's fine. I mean, I just resent it to him. Tell him to check his junk mail. He's had that issue before, too.
He's having trouble with the link, he said.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We got 15 seconds. I guess I'll just hit blank if I need to.
How much time?
We're out of time. That's why I'm just sitting here. We have to clear out dead space after the fact now. What are we doing?
Just tell me when to go.
Okay, here we go. Turn this back. This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. It's September 18th, and you know what that means. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joins us after a tough weekend for the Hoosier football squad as they travel to Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium, taking on the Louisville Cardinals and former Purdue coach Jeff Brom in a game that turned out to be a pretty epic ending. Just did not go the way that the Hoosiers would like to have seen that go, Don. It was certainly a tale of two halves.
That it was, Jim. There's no question. Indiana kind of laid an egg in the first half, especially defensively. Couldn't get stops. Too many big plays given up. Obviously, the first one, that 85-yard pass play that gave them their first score. Louisville, we're talking about now. Plummer to Jamari Thrash, and that kind of started the slide down the tube, so to speak, for this Indiana football team, because defensively, that was probably the strength of this ball club after a couple of ball games of the season early on, and you thought the defense was not going to have those kinds of issues, but they certainly did in the first half of this ball game, and the offense couldn't get going either. So, there's no question the first half was dismal, and at halftime, I think most everybody was feeling like, man, this was fool's gold we've been talking about here for the first 2 weeks of the season. Fortunately, everything changed with the kickoff at the start of the second half when Tom Allen and his crew decided we're going to gamble a little bit here if we can see it. And actually, Tom told me before the ball game that if they might have a couple of trick plays up their sleeve, because you always expect Jeff Robb to have a few of those. And Tom said, we may try an onside kick. We may have a fake punt going here. I said, really? He said, yes, sir. Well, it turned out that the onside kick was exactly what Indiana needed, because to start the second half, they kicked that ball to the side and Indiana recovered it. And the next thing you know, we're in the end zone after a nice little drive led by David Jackson, who really came on strong in the second half. And, of course, the receiving core was tremendous in this ball game, because a lot of his throws were a little bit high, but guys were pulling him in left and right. And you really had to feel good about what Indiana was able to accomplish in the second half of the contest. Unfortunately, way too many points given up in the first half and with those big plays.
Yeah, and the fact that Taven missed a few of those passes high is still pretty amazing, because his accuracy overall throughout the game in totality was pretty damn good. He was 24 of 34. So he hit, and for 299 yards, of course, a lot of that coming in the second half, but he looked smooth throughout, which in his first true start has got to be a very positive sign for India. The offense looked good for the most part in some degrees, but in the defense, Tom Allen was asked about the difference between the first and a half, and he kind of alluded to the fact that there was a lot of holding going on in the first half by Louisville. But, man, the second half, they shut that vaunted Cardinal offense down, which I would have thought that to be next to impossible.
Yeah, based on what we saw in the first half and what Louisville was able to do in their first couple of ball games, averaging, 600 yards a ball game or plus, 600-plus yards a game. It was just crazy how much they had done offensively. But Indiana was able to stuff them in the second half, which was a really impressive performance at that side of the football. But the biggest, and to me, when you look at this ball game, there were so many opportunities, and I shouldn't say so many. There were definitely opportunities for Indiana to turn things around. Didn't get it done in the first half, but in the second half, the momentum shift, the change in the thinking process or the mentality of the football team, I think completely changed on the onside kick. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Had they not recovered that onside kick, Louisville's in position to score another touchdown to start the second half and make it 28-0. But they didn't. They got the ball. They went down and scored right away. The whole complexion of the football game changed at that point, and it made I think it gave confidence to this Indiana football team that they could get the job done. Unfortunately, when they didn't score the touchdown to tie the ball game with less than 5 minutes to go in the contest, that just kind of, I think it just signals the problem that Indiana's had over the years. And that's that issue with not being able to finish football games sometimes.
Yeah, and one area where you'd have to look at when you look at the statistics is the running game still not at all what you want to see. Total rushing 58 yards out of 5 guys and 27 attempts, barely over 2 yards a carry. So that is still a glaring problem for this team, and they have a good running backs room.
They do. You're absolutely right. there's nothing wrong with the running backs that they have. Jalen Lucas is spectacular, as everyone knows. He's very capable of turning a game around just with his skill set. Josh Henderson is as dependable and inside the tackles runner as you're going to find. They gave him the football, and they're trying to score at the 1 foot line. Yeah, obviously, he didn't get it in, but I don't think it was the right play call. That's my own personal opinion. It's no reflection on Walt Bell or anybody else. Just that didn't work. I would have gone with a quarterback sneak and had two guys shoving David Jackson from behind to get him into the end zone. Because that, to me, when you got a foot or just inches to go, you've got to get that ball in. And I think that's the negative on the play call it was, because Josh Henderson takes the handoff 2 or 3 yards back behind the line of scrimmage now. And now he's got to leap over that group, and obviously that just didn't work. So, long story short, Indiana didn't make the play that they needed to make. They end up losing the ball game, but it was a tremendous turnaround performance, and from that standpoint, you've got to take some positives.
Yeah, and one place where we do disagree is I am going to blame Walt Bell on that call, because there's no way when you are that close and you have a quarterback that Taven's a strong kid. He's a big, strong kid, and when all you have to do is crack that seal, he could have, not that I'd want him seeing reaching, but if he wanted to take it and just leap, he could have just with his reach crossed the plane, I would imagine. But I've watched that play over and over, and man, oh man, that the quarterback sneak would have worked all day and twice on Sunday instead of a play that took 2.5 seconds to develop. I was more than a little shocked, as is everybody else, which it's easy to second guess. I get that. Tom Allen said that, but you just, nobody calls that play when you're that close, and with good reason. And it's going to be a huge difference for Indiana in this season, because now that's a game that they potentially could have won and get themselves a little bit closer to reaching bowl eligibility.
Yep. Ifs and buts and candies and nuts.
Yep. Boy, oh boy.
But it didn't happen. Indiana didn't win the ball game. Obviously, if Indiana scores a touchdown there, they just tie it, unless they're going to go for 2, which I would have doubted, because Indiana had so much momentum in the second half, and that would have just continued that momentum had they scored there. And my gut is that Tom would have gone for the extra point to tie the ball game and hope to get the ball back before the game ended to have another opportunity. But we'll never know, because it didn't happen. All we do know is that Indiana gave themselves a chance. It didn't come to fruition. Now they've got a battle, and they're going to have games like that probably for the rest of this year, and they're going to have to find a way to get it done in situations like that, because I think they're going to have more of those based on the schedule that we see up there. There are games that they can win. There are teams that we thought were going to be really good that so far have just looked kind of mediocre. It's kind of who elevates their game the rest of the season that's going to come out of there with the wins, the kind of wins that you're looking for, and that can give you bowl eligibility. And Indiana's got to continue to get better.
Yeah, and that, other than that 85-yard touchdown, that was really a catch and run. Or, well, I guess it was half and half. But if you take that away, that's the Indiana defense holds Louisville to a really substandard number. They threw for 238 yards total. That's with that 85-yard touchdown. So if you take that off there, you're holding Louisville to 150 yards or so throwing the ball. That would have been an exceptional day. They'd had some problems stopping the running attack. They gave up 184 yards on the ground to Louisville.
Right, and when I look at it, I look at it this way, in the sense that this Indiana football team at this juncture, especially on the defensive side of the football, still looking to find themselves a little bit, and you're going to have some ball games where you're going to give up some yards in the rushing game. You're going to have some games where you give up some yards in the passing game. It's not the key here is to not give up big plays. And yeah, the 85-yarder was one big one, but there were 5 other plays in that ball game that gave up way too many yards. That stops could have been made that were not made, and that's what caused you concern in the first half of the game. Because if you looked at the defense in the second quarter, they had their heads down. They didn't look like they were going to be able to tough it out. To me, at least that's the kind of the vibe that I got watching these guys coming off the field after the plays and touchdowns and those kinds of things. I don't want to say that they gave up. I don't think they gave up, but I just think that they didn't have that confidence level that you have to play on the defensive side of the football. It came back in the second half, no question about it. So obviously, whatever adjustments Tom and the defensive side of the football made, they got it done. But again, the biggest play of that ball game was the onside kick. If that not have happened, if it would have gone the other way, I think this season would be really something that you could put in the trash bin because I think it would have hurt a lot.
I agree with you. And the fact that they were down 21-0, period, and found the wherewithal to put themselves in a position to tie that game was surprising and a good sign, because that's not something that we see a lot from Indiana football, especially against a team that of this caliber. But they did do that. They did come out. They made the fight, and they were in a position to tie the game. So that's something that if you have a team that can do that, you've got to have confidence in going forward, if they can carry that confidence forward and not let the loss hang over their head.
Right, exactly. And look, this is a football team. It is in transition. I mean, we've already pointed out ad nauseum how many transfer portal guys are on this roster and in the game that play in the ball game. I mean, you have 23 of 24 transfer portal guys who were supposedly on the depth chart in going into this season. And I say on the depth chart of the top 50, 55 players on this team. And most of those guys are all playing in the third game of the season. So, and the guys that aren't, or that some of them that aren't, have been injured and just not able to play. So I just think there's some real positives coming out of this ball game, even though it was a loss. And that's what we have to look at in Indiana. We've got to try to look at the positive side of things. And right now, there's still lots to talk about in that regard.
Yeah, they have a team coming up this week, Akron, that should be, again, another get-right game. They played Kentucky last week. I was actually busy watching a ton of games, and I meant to watch that one, and I'm not gotten around to doing so yet. So I didn't see what Kentucky ended up doing with Akron, but I'm sure it was not a tough one.
Well, Kentucky beat them 35-3. Actually, Akron, I thought, played the little parts that I watched, because I did watch part of that ball game just to see, get some names and get a feel on what kind of team Akron was. And Akron battled Kentucky. It wasn't just like it was a 35-point blowout, 35-3 blowout all the way through. Akron battled a little bit. They're a team that's capable. They've got a second-year coach who's trying to change the culture for the Zips. And I think he does a good job with the play calling, and they've got some skilled athletes. So yeah, it's not going to be a blowover like it was against Indiana State, but it's still a team that Indiana could and should beat. And obviously, we'll have to wait and see on Saturday how it all plays out, because, again, we're playing in a night game, so it's a 7:30 kickoff, which is not our favorite thing to have to deal with. But nevertheless, it is the schedule that we're given, and we will do it.
Absolutely. In that game against Kentucky, Akron is more of a passing team, as they were able to put up only 190 yards against Kentucky, but only 49 yards on the ground. So that gives you an indication of what you're going to be seeing this week for Indiana. But more importantly, the offense for Indiana, it looks like a good offense. I mean, they have talented pieces. I've been saying that out there, and whether we're talking about the running backs room, they're a two-part of this, because now they're getting those guys out in space and throwing the ball to both Jalen Lucas and Josh Henderson, in addition to the receivers, which makes the offense a lot more dynamic.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I still think that the big key for this team to really improve and get better as the season goes through is being able to muster a running attack. And at this point, we haven't seen much of it. Between the tackles running has not worked out at all. Most of everything Indiana's been able to do from the standpoint of running the football has been on the outside. That's got to change. It's still, the question mark is, how good is this offensive line? I think Bostad does a terrific job and has done a terrific job of improving the offensive line. They're keeping David Jackson pretty clean. They've done a very good job of that at this point, and the quarterbacks in general have not had a lot of pressure on them. They've had time to throw the football, so that's a big plus. But you've still got to be able to run the football effectively to keep everything balanced out there to give your offense what they need to get down the field. And I think that's going to be ongoing. One of the things that they've got to improve in this season is going to be what we want it to be.
Yeah, and if you look across the receiving statistics, you will see a very, very varied look, as Jalen Lucas was the leader with near 100 yards, 98 yards on 10 receptions. Donovan McCulley is really, really just getting better each game, and what a target he is, especially for Taven Jackson, who seems to throw the ball high a little bit. It's good to have a 6-foot guy out there. Cam Camper, another guy, Archer. Then now you've got Josh Henderson as well, using the tight ends, Bamba getting out into the action as well. So they're kind of moving the ball around, which is a good thing.
Yeah, there's no question. And like I said before, this receiving core, I said this before the season began, I think that's one of the real keys to this team, one of the real strong points of this football team. These receivers are excellent, and there's nobody that I feel like you can't throw the ball to and that guy will come down with it. They've got receiving room, and as well as the running back. So the catch that Josh Henderson made and went for 18 yards in this ball game was spectacular. Out of the backfield. So you've got receiving wise, there are no concerns in that department, in my opinion. The big question mark is all in the run game, and that's where the improvements got to come.
Absolutely. We're chopping it up with Don Fischer, who you can find this Wednesday night at Inside Indiana Football takes place at 7:05 with Coach Tom Allen at Chop Shop Market and Table. Looking forward to seeing you there, sir.
All right, looking forward to being there. Obviously, sorry I couldn't join you today via Zoom, but there's some reason it's either my computer or the links that are not working. We'll have to find out what that is.
We'll take the blame for it. Don Fischer, right, the greatest. We appreciate you, sir.
See you guys.
Thank you very much. There is Fish joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got more coming up. Dustin Dopirak from Indy Star. We'll hear from Jeff Brom, from Tom Allen, and from Taven Jackson later on as well. Back with more, brought to you by Chop Shop Market and Table, where you'll find Inside Indiana Football this Wednesday night at 7:05 with Don Fischer and Tom Allen right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
How that wasn't bad. Hello.
Good morning, Jim. How you doing?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
Doing all right. Change of venue. We're in South Bend today.
I was going to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, visits my wife's aunt's 70th. She was in town. She just flew back to Massachusetts.
Is it chilly up there?
It is chilly up there. It's like 50 outside. I mean, it's not bad. It was all in the 70s most of the weekend, but it did get a jacket was required. So I haven't, this is the first time I've worn a jacket since like May. And I didn't miss it. So, but yeah, so it's getting a little colder up here. We're heading into that part of the year.
Bring it on. I say, I hate the heat.
Really? I'm a heat fan mostly because I hate snow that much. Or not even snow itself, but what snow does to your life.
That's fair. That's a fair.
I have no
especially if you have to travel a lot.
Yeah, it's that I'm not looking forward to. You know, I mean, like you got a while, but it's just like once you get started down this road, you know, like you're on the way to snow and ice and general misery, and I'm not looking forward to that. I savor my summers every single year, and I never complain about being hot. I mean, it got nuts this year. Let's be real though. Like, you know, tipping 100 was a bit.
Yeah, I just can't stand walking outside and immediately feeling wet. That's the worst.
Right. That's fair. That's entirely fair. And there's been more of that, I think, this year than we've had in recent years. Where even
I feel like overall the summer was mild, but the times where it was hot, it was
nuts. Yeah, no, it was crazy. We had like a couple week crazy stretches where you're like, you can't even go outside. You know, like, this is insane. Like, I had to, like, I got when I went down to Vegas for summer league, like that was definitely one of those moments where, like, okay, we might have an issue here. Like, I mean, like, you know, it's bad there all the time, but like even for Vegas standards, it was like, yeah, this is nuts. This is totally insane. Nobody can go outside right now. You know, and as bad as it was in Vegas at that point, it was worse in Phoenix. It was like 120 when it was like 110 in Vegas. And I was like, what is this? This is totally nuts. So, but yeah, it's not, heading into fall is not the worst thing. Just, you know,
the transition period from summer to fall and winter to spring is my favorite. Really?
That's fair. Yeah, because you're just like, it's starting to get warmer. Like in spring, it's starting to get warmer. In September, like when you do September, it's like, it's nice. It's 60s, 70s.
You can comfortably do yard work. I think that's what I enjoy the most.
Yeah, that's fair. It definitely, you know, comes down a notch with that. You can actually go out there and not sweat ridiculously when you're trying to do yard work.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Jimbo, got about 10 seconds. You can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of Wow Food Group. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. It's September 18th, and as always, we are so fortunate to have Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joining us, as he is still on hiatus. But the hiatus is about to come to a close.
I'd say hiatus. It's closer to, it's not really use of accrued time is what we're.
When I say hiatus, people should understand that when you're not on hiatus, it's a 7-day-a-week venture. So that's what I want people to understand. Just like right now is already 6 days a week for me. And then when you add basketball, there you go. That's a nice 7-day a week each week. So trust me, when you're not, I take it all you can get, brother.
Sure. Go ahead.
But it still does not prevent you from enjoying all the trappings of the sports world. I'm sure you had a gander at the Louisville, Indiana game at some point. At the end of that game, we were just talking about that with Don, and there's no way that while Tom Allen said he won't second guess the call, I will, and so will everybody else, because that call does not get made. And I hate to say this, but if Indiana has a head coach that is a much more offensively minded head coach, that call does not get made. There's no way in the world you're not running a quarterback sneak. I mean, that's got to be 80% on the top of your mind when you're an inch and a half off.
Right.
The margin for error is here. I mean, you're putting the onus on them now when you run a quarterback sneak, to me, because it's so hard to stop that. But Indiana gave them every opportunity by taking a snap, taking a step back, handing the ball off. I mean, now you've taken a play that should have taken a half second and turned it into a 2.5 second play. And all that does is give time for things to go to hell. And it did.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the biggest issue is if you can run that play when you're winning up front. Like that's really the thing is that you've seen 1,000 different plays work from 1 yard out, and you know, sometimes putting it in the hands of your running back is the move. Like if you feel like that's the guy you'd rather have the ball in his hands. The issue is when you've got to get the tiny amount of space that they got, you know, to win with a running back play, you've got to be able to win up front. Because I mean, sometimes you can win up front and that guy walks in, you know, and that because you trust that better, you'd rather not just pile bodies. You believe you can win up front and clear a hole and get that guy a waltz into the end zone. And you know, what would they run for? 57 yards? Something like that. I'm going to call up. I've got stat broadcast in front of me.
Oh, Indiana, 58. It was 58. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 57 yards, like 58 yards, 57 yards. It's just like you can't. When it's not that you're losing up front, but you're not beating them up. You haven't been beating them up, and you haven't won up front traditionally.
You average 2.1 yards a carry on the entire day.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of that is just Jalen Lucas not making something out of nothing, but just getting a lot out of raw speed. Some option stuff, they had the I was just watching the tape actually because we were like I'm up in South Bend and we've been doing a lot of social events all week, so I got up in the morning to watch as much of this as I could. The creative thing they did was sending all the offensive line down past the hash mark down to the boundary and then running a reverse behind that with Lucas. They had to do creative stuff to get yards on the ground at all. So when you're not winning like that up front, then yeah, it becomes more of a crazy issue. I mean, like they could have. There's other things they could have done. A quarterback sneak would have been a good move. I mean, and obviously in retrospect, every play becomes a better play than what you ran. Every play becomes a better play than the one that lost yardage because, and I'm sure that's probably what Bell will say today that, it's not a good play because it didn't work. And so I get why, but it's just, again, the reason you're wrong is because you were losing up front. You can run that play when you're winning up front. It's not that stupid when you've got a legit running back and you're beating them up the middle. If you're getting push, then it's not the worst idea if you're trusting your running back to find the hole and find the 1 yard rather than saying, like, if you're running a quarterback sneak, you're just piling bodies and hoping. So I get that. Quarterback sneak, you've seen it not work. It's not like it works every single time. But it's an issue of you have, when you're not winning up front, you have a little bit more margin for error when you're running that quarterback sneak and you just push forward and you don't have to get much. You don't have to clear much space for that to work. So yeah, it's fair to question. Yeah, it's 100% fair to question. It's always fair to question the play that does not work. And now I would say you got to give them credit for getting themselves back in that position to make that a game. They had to make some bold moves to put themselves in position to have a chance at that point in the game. The gutsy to just come out of halftime with an onside kick. When you're down 21-0, and you're down 21.
That was ball. That was the great move. Stinks for a great move like that, a successful move like it. Not only was a great move, it was successful, and what it did. But to me, it gets washed away because you allowed this idiotic call. And to me, I'm sorry. It's just, I said it earlier when last week, I think it was last week when Indiana had a defender run into the punt returner two times. He called that stupid after the game. He called it stupid 2 times at the Monday press conference, and he called it stupid 2 times at another time. So 6 times he called that stupid. Well, I'm going to call this stupid for the rest of the year because it was a game. You can't say it cost him the game because it would have allowed him to tie potentially.
Sure. But obviously go for 2 in theory.
The rushing, not only the rushing yards we talked about, are on 2 plays. Josh Lucas goes 11 and Jalen Lucas goes 11 yards and Josh Henderson goes 12 yards on 2 plays. So you take those 23 yards off of their total rushing, and then the rest of the attempts, they average 1.4 yards per game in the entire per carry for the entire game. You're not doing jack.
No, you weren't picking up chunks. You weren't picking up chunks at all. And except like they could have done something with a rollout. You just got a bunch of yards on a broken play, basically. I
think that Taven Jackson could have reached the ball across. Now you want somebody to jump. He's 6'5". Let him take the ball and jump up,
right?
And just reach, just break the plane. It's all you have to do.
Sure. It is.
They could not have stopped the quarterback.
It's harder than it sounds.
Well, I know. But they could not have stopped the quarterback sneak. They just would not have. It would have worked all day long. And I just don't know how you don't do. I don't know how you don't call that play. I really don't, especially with all that's on the line. But I take it back to this not being. I don't think Indiana has the best offensive coordinator that they could have, and Tom is not an offensively minded head coach, and that's not his fault. I mean, he's a defensive guy, great defensive mind. I mean, such a good defensive mind. And Indiana, and it shows. I don't know that Indiana has ever been better defensively than they have been while Tom has been here at certain points.
Go back to the Mallory era at least. You go back to the Mallory era at least. I mean, like they've had, yeah. But
unless he has a Kalen DeBoer who knows offense, who is just good, these kinds of mistakes keep happening. And I'm like, man, they just can't get it right on offense, whether it's not replacing the offensive line coach in time or whatever, but spinning that wheel, man.
Yeah. It's difficult. I mean, like the reason they don't have Kalen DeBoer is not because they didn't want to keep Kalen DeBoer. When you get a Kalen DeBoer, he gets a better job fast, and that's where, he's got a top 10 team and,
got a Heisman Trophy candidate that kind of used to be in Bloomington, but that's another story.
Yeah. It's a whole other issue. That's kind of, unfortunately, that's where they were as far as who they could get after you had a season like they had in 2021. So they're in a position where they had to go get somebody. And I think there are things that Bell did well in this game. For as much as I don't trust, you could argue against that move. I think there were a lot of things that they did well. I mean, I think you definitely saw growth from Taven Jackson for sure. Obviously there were some issues there, but he hits that big time throw to Camper on that drive. I'm pretty sure it was on that drive, or maybe it was the touchdown drive before that. But he threw a shot to Camper. I mean, you're seeing real growth week to week from Taven, and that's impressive. So that requires some work on behalf of the offensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach. Like I said, I thought the trick play, basically moving all the offensive line to one side and flipping the reverse to the other side, was an interesting play. And again, I thought there were some good things. I thought the fact that they got up off the canvas down 21-0 with some busted plays. I mean, like basically when you give up those kinds of just complete breakdowns to fall behind 21-0, a lot of teams fold in that position. And so
I'm shocked. Yeah, I gave him. I got to give him credit for that too. I told him.
I did like I said. I just did a rush watch of this morning, so it's different to just sort of gauge, the mood and whatnot when you're hitting fast forward. But again, 21-0, and that could have been worse because they had a big broken one that ended up in a missed field goal. As well. So, I mean, there was some bad mistakes early in that half. You followed 21-0, and a lot of teams just fade, and they didn't. And so you got to give some credit to coaching there to get you back in it. But yeah, I mean, and to your point, there have been just some big mistakes, and you could probably encapsulate the Allen era that way if it ends with him, having to move on or being forced to move on. Then you could say he did a lot of things very, very well, and there were just a handful of mistakes that were,
gigantic. Go back to the Gator Bowl. Bowl,
in a football sense, were fatal. I don't like to use the word fatal, but obviously you're talking about, that's a loaded word. But
there's a lot of different games where you can think about one play.
Sure.
Made the difference. I said, go back to the Gator Bowl, the onside kick that speaking of onside kicks, that got Indiana going in this game, but it cost them against Tennessee in the Gator Bowl a few years ago when everybody in the stadium knew it was coming, apparently, except for Indiana. But it's little things like that have added up over this tenure because if you don't do those, you win that Gator Bowl. Oh, what does that do for you? And then you win that game yesterday. What that changes the entire complexity of this season, and makes making bowl eligibility a hell of a lot easier. But it also gives this team more confidence. It would have put them at 3 wins already with Rutgers, Maryland, Illinois, Minnesota. I think I'm trying to. Or Wisconsin.
3 wins. Yeah.
There's teams winnable games. Multiple Purdue. Speaking of which, we've got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll talk about Purdue. They may be in worse shape. They are very disappointing on the season so far. Dustin Dopirak from Indy Star joining us, brought to you by Barber Pop Real Estate Services. If you're in the Louisville area, and Cheryl Sizemore with Remax up in Indianapolis, reach out to Cheryl at IndyProPros.com or Matt Lincoln at barberpop.com or Barbara at barberpop.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market for Purdue stinks, man.
Apparently, I didn't watch this at all, so I'm during the break. I'm catching up with
They've lost 2 at home.
Yeah, one being Fresno State, and they beat a Virginia Tech team that
might be the worst team in the ACC.
It's not good.
So they got housed by Rutgers, absolutely housed. That's not supposed to happen. You don't schedule that game if you're Virginia Tech thinking that's going to go down.
Nope. No. I'm amazed at how Purdue's looking because their coach. But see, Ryan Walters is another defensive-minded coach, which although he seems with Graham Harrell, he seems to have what you would think would be a good offensive coordinator. But I haven't followed them to know what their issues exactly are enough. But I know it's not going well.
No, you
lose 2 out of your 3 non-con games. That ain't a good start.
I mean, they didn't exactly give themselves an easy non-conference schedule, to be fair.
No,
but
they're actually playing. They're playing people every week.
I think some of these teams are a little better than people expected them to be at the time.
I bet Fresno State, who beat them, would also beat Virginia Tech, who they beat. Fresno State's obviously a good program, even though they're in the
Fresno State might beat Syracuse.
You're talking about all. The bottom line is they're playing nothing but teams you've heard of.
Yes,
that most people have.
Normally it's Troy and Saskatchewan State.
They're playing at worst people. All 3 of their non-con games were against
P5 teams
that your average human has heard of in America. And you're playing Virginia Tech on the road. And then you got a home and home with Syracuse, but those are, Syracuse isn't 1993 with Donovan McNabb's Syracuse, but it's, they're no joke, or was it 97, 98 with Donovan McNabb? But before that, it was Marvin Graves. They just, that team's no joke. And so they're pushing themselves and they're having a changeover too. I don't think you got to get several years in to have a sense of what a guy's going to be. And I don't think you know what Walter's going to be yet at all. But I don't think
absolutely not, because he was a hell of a job as a defensive coach, and Graham Harrell has done a good job. We'll see. But Purdue was smart enough. At least they didn't schedule a game in Indianapolis. They have 7 home games this season. They've lost 2 of them already.
Yeah. Here we go.
They still have 5 left.
Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, September 18th. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us, talking some college football at the moment. Purdue not looking great to start the season with a 1-2 mark after 2 home games and losing 2 out of their 3 non-con games. And then, at least fortunately for the Boilers, they get to open up their conference play. That may be a welcome relief because since they play in the West. And they have a lot of games that I think are going to be 50-50 games. You've got Wisconsin up next, I believe. And that's at home. Wisconsin hasn't lit the world on fire. Luke Fickell's a new year. They've got a new coach as well. So you've got a new coach. So 2 programs with new coaches, even though Wisconsin has been a stalwart of the Big Ten West. It's not how it always has been right now for them, but that doesn't mean things aren't going to turn around.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wisconsin's had the Washington State loss last week, and so they're looking, relatively vulnerable. That does not look like one of those Wisconsin teams that just blows out the West and just stomps on everybody by running behind 330-pound linemen and putting a guy in the Heisman candidacy, creating an All-American tailback behind that. I don't know that they have that necessarily. And Purdue, they had a pretty difficult non-conference schedule: Fresno State, Virginia Tech. But Virginia Tech is looking rough after losing to Syracuse or to Rutgers and then Syracuse. And they've also got, Ohio State and Michigan are among their crossovers, are two of their three crossovers, with the other one being Indiana in the bucket game. So they're Purdue's in some rough shape. Again, Wisconsin looks vulnerable. Generally, everybody in the West, but I think Iowa, right now looks like the best team. Although Minnesota had a nice win against North Carolina, I think. Am I wrong about that?
No, they got beat.
Oh, they got beat 31-13. I'm sorry. No, they beat Nebraska in the opener, and then they beat Eastern Michigan. But they got thumped by North Carolina in Chapel Hill this weekend. So the West, as usual, is the West. I'm presuming it's going to operate the way it always does, is that anybody can beat anybody, and then somebody will go to Indianapolis in December and get smoked by whether it's Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State. We know one of those three. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, Purdue not the best start. Had some issues with penalties in this game. I'm going to call up a box score so I know what I'm looking at. But yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to, you're in the middle of creating a new, just dealing with a new coaching staff, figure out where you're going to be, who you're going to be, how you're going to operate, what you need, who fits, all that kind of stuff. Transfer quarterback Hudson Card, although he had a nice game, 323 yards in this one, only ran for 80 yards net, gave up 271 on the ground. So yeah, even having a defensive coach, they didn't defend particularly well in this one, had a bunch of penalties as well. So yeah, they're struggling, but again, all things are possible in the West. You never know who's going to come out of there and who's going to get right.
Yeah, Purdue was 7, however many more games they've got, 9, 5 more home games, 6 what I call 50-50 games left on their schedule, which I'm like, I can't look at them right now. And I'm like, okay, I don't know who's going to win that game. That includes Indiana, because Indiana has to go to Purdue. Sure. 4 of those 6 50-50 games in my mind are at home. And the first 2 are up next. They host Wisconsin, and then they host Illinois. Neither of those teams, like I said, have looked great. Illinois, I was expecting more out of Illinois in the second year under Brett Bielema, because they looked pretty good last year. They lose early to Indiana, but then they go on and win like 8 straight, have a bowl season. But
lost some big pieces, though. Lost some really big pieces. Chase Brown was really good. It's definitely when you see some guys move on, and you're like, yeah, you know what? They were legit. That guy was legit, and that's going to be an issue making up for him. Chase Brown was a big time player, man. And Indiana did a pretty good job in game 1 of keeping him from getting beat. Or did he get hurt in that game? Just everything runs together. But Chase was good. Chase was really, really, really good. So I think that's Illinois is just making up for losing some key pieces. I think there were some other guys that they lost, but Chase was one that really stood out. I mean, he was, what was he, first team All Big Ten last year? He was terrific. So I think that's a big piece to it too, is that just missing some guys that really made that team good. You had a sense that there was going to be some fall off this year just because they were, they had to move on without some of those players.
I watched the Colorado State game to the completion. And
same. Me too.
Did you?
That's the only game I watched.
I looked at the clock when I was done, and I'm like, holy crap. It was like 2:30 in the morning, Eastern time, I believe. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that. But what a game in so many ways. First of all, the hype lived up to the reality of this. And I think a big part of that was Colorado State's coach. The stuff that everybody was ripping his butt for, not ripping him, but really, even The Rock was like, what's wrong with you, man? What are you doing? And I'm like, it worked. I think he had Colorado right where he wanted him, because they were so focused on that stuff that they were not focused on the game at hand or whatever. But man, Colorado State makes a statement. That game, they could have won that game. But and just imagine if Deion loses that game at home to that guy. He even said it in the post-game presser. He said, I'm thinking I can't lose this guy. That guy cannot win this game here. This presser is going to be unbelievable. But
when he loses it all, first off, like when he loses to anybody, it's going to be a thing. I mean, it's wild. I'm like, it is a fascinating phenomenon, honestly, because first off, like the fact that we're even in this point now where he's already like in this villain stage of like, when he loses, everybody's going to throw it back in his face. They were one of the worst teams in college football last year. And now they're the team to watch. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to win anything big or whatever. Like, I don't know if they're a national championship caliber team, but they're fun. His son is amazing. I mean, my God. Like, I mean,
which one? I'm kidding.
That was absolutely, I mean, like the way he's playing quarterback is that phenomenal. And like, again, the one thing that if people were going to be charitable, and I presume they wouldn't be, but if they were going to be charitable, there is the fact that like Travis Hunter, got his just block knocked off. I mean, my God,
that was a dirty. I when I saw that, I'm thinking North Dallas 40. And you probably are too old to know this. This was a movie.
No, I know about it. I haven't watched it, but I know of it. Yeah,
and that hit was, I mean, it reminded me of the original. What was the prison movie with Burt Reynolds?
The Longest Yard.
No, it reminded me of The Longest Yard when they're just the craziest, dirtiest hits. That was a dirty hit. The pass had already hit the ground. The defender that was with him had already kind of gone by, and a safety comes over and just, I don't know what the injury is, if it's ribs, what it is, but he hit him in that area. And I have to say that was a dirty hit. And did it work? Almost. I mean, they got the best player out of the game, but man, man, I'm a little, I can see Deion just holding a grudge over that. And I wouldn't blame him. And I would not blame him.
Yeah. No, I'm sure he will, and especially if it becomes a thing. They're saying he's going to miss a couple of weeks, but I mean, I think they're trying to keep quiet how rough that was, because that did not look pretty, and that did not look pretty on the sideline. When you saw him come to the ground, like that's like like it wasn't like a head thing where you're like, okay, he's not moving. It was more like, okay, like the way he's writhing is concerning. Like that's somebody that's in a lot of pain, and like is also kind of gasping for air sort of deal. So yeah, no, I mean that one is going to resonate for years. As far as that rivalry is concerned. It's like, I mean, that rivalry exists because it's two teams in the same state. Like they have to have something. But when was the last time we thought about Colorado and Colorado State out loud? Like, the last thing I remember, Joey Porter played there. Joey Porter played at Colorado State.
Oh, wow. And
Joey Porter got shot when he was playing for the Steelers. Like he went to go see the game, and he was like out in Denver or whatever, and he got shot. I think they played the game in Denver one year. I think it was, if he got shot in some place where it wasn't, I think might have been, in the back of the leg or something like that. It wasn't anywhere it was life threatening, but that was a deal. And, like that was kind of one of his motivations when they were playing Denver in the AFC title game that, in 2005. But I think so all the same, like that, as it's going to be a deal now. And I mean, just the entire scene with Deion has just been incredible. I mean, and it was wild that Norville, talked any kind of mess on him at all, to start with. Cause like, I thought like Deion's going to get these guys just ramped, and, you might get beat by 30 in this one. I mean, they obviously came to play, and obviously the hit's 30, but like you're going to live with that. The game itself was just phenomenal football. Like I had no idea how good Colorado State was. Colorado State,
boy,
and
they were better than 24.5-point underdogs. I can tell you that.
Yeah, they were. That's, I mean, the receiver whose, name is escaping me right now was terrific. They threw the ball really well. They just that was a solid team that did a good job for the most part of keeping Deion's, Shador Sanders from getting rolling. But when he got rolling, he was spectacular. I mean,
I am a little tired of at the end of the game when the coaches were meeting. Well, there's Shador Sanders right in the middle of it. And I'm like, why are you in the middle of the coaches huddle at the end of the field? Deion mentioned it a little bit at the end, but it's like, dude, come on, stop with the posturing crap. Now that's
going to stop with the Jim.
I know, and that's like,
stop with the posturing. That's what they do. That's what he's been doing for 30 years. Like,
well, I mean, at certain limits, there's certain
here.
Times.
Fair, but I mean, like, posturing is what's going on here. Posturing is what's selling this. Like that is what is driving this gravy train.
You're right.
Because, I mean, apparently everybody is capitalizing. Like, I mean, like I saw just somebody pointing out, like, you have no idea how much, like, if you're writing about Deion Sanders right now, your clicks are through the roof. Like, it's like, I think someone said it's like, it's stimulus for college football media. Like, everybody is reading this stuff. Like, nobody can get enough of it. But that's like, Deion has been posturing for 30 years, more than 30 years going, but what was it, like 88, 87, 89, at Florida State? Like, that's what it's been, all this time. And like, because Deion's walking in the door and saying, like, I can do this same way he did when he was playing football and baseball at the same time. It's like, all right, I am this good. I am Deion Sanders. I'm going to find a way, and just about every turn he's done it. I mean, obviously he had a quiet period where he was just doing whatever, but I'm just deciding that he's going to coach, be this successful, be able to recruit these kind of players, be brash, obnoxious while he's doing it. This is the Deion. This is the story of Deion Sanders just pushed into coaching mode. And so, and again, like,
what happens after his sons are no longer in college?
What's that?
What happens after his sons are no longer?
He'll keep doing this because it's going to be like a drug for him. Like, I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way or anything like that.
No, I get it.
But I mean, in these sense.
That's why he moved to Colorado. He wanted to show that, well, this ain't a fluke. I'm not just doing this at this lower level.
I'm not just doing this at HBCU level. Like, it's not, this isn't just a, like, and not the word gimmick, because I mean, there's a whole bunch there's a big question that Belani Jones brought it up about, like, when you committed to the idea of making an HBCU a powerhouse again, and then you leave after a couple of years, it's like, like, did you really devote yourself to that particular cause? But I think he noticed, it's like, all right, like, I'm getting these kind of players. I think also the fact that he got Travis Hunter, like, the fact that he got Travis Hunter was like, okay, like, you're getting, when someone is saying, basically, I'm one of the best players in the country and I'm going wherever you tell me. And he's also a guy who has sort of Deion characteristics as a player. It's basically like, he is sort of getting a sense that, like, I can go anywhere, I can go anywhere. So stick me in the Power 5 and I will have a chance. And they're doing way better than expected. Obviously, who knows what happens when you get in the USCs and, Washingtons and the other teams that are already, kind of established in what's going to be a really fun last ride for the Pac-12. This conference is about to go down in flames, but it's going to have a great year on the way out. It's just, I think once he wins legitimately and his kids move on, yeah, I think he's sticking with it, because, like, how could he not? How could he walk away from this? In 4 or 5 years, no chance. I mean, like, I'm not saying he does it for 20, but he'll do it for 10. He'll do it until it gets to the point where where it's not fun anymore. Like, at some point, like, everybody has a down thing unless you're Nick Saban. And again, if Deion Sanders becomes Nick Saban, he's never quitting. He'll ride this into the dust. If he can be that good for that long. Yeah, I mean, like, if he gets fired one time, he's done. Like, he's not going to come back and, try to retread himself. Like, there's
who gonna be the man to fire Deion?
That's fair. I mean, he'd have to lose a bunch. Like if again, like, these things rise and fall. You've seen it. I mean, again, 2 years ago, Tom Allen is the toast of college football, and right now we're talking about how much longer does he last. This thing turns quickly. Things can go wrong very, very fast.
I agree with Sean. He says, no matter what you think, it shows it can happen anywhere. Well, I think it definitely can happen in Indiana. Right now, I think that they have a good enough team right now to win 8 games if they had be better coaching in certain positions, in certain spots, if they had more experienced coaches at certain areas that don't make those tiny mistakes, that don't allow those little tiny mistakes. And I know that's a kind of a hard thing to say, and I don't mean it to be that way, but I think that there are obviously coaches that can get more out of the same players than other coaches, because we see it all the time, success or not success. And I believe that Indiana at this particular moment has talent, and because of the transfer portal, I think the transfer portal has been fabulous for college football. I'm like every day, week we're watching and we're like going, who's beating whom? What?
Right.
It's like it's just like COVID without COVID, because this has nothing to do with COVID. I think it's the transfer portal. I think that there has been the water has equaled out more. These guys that go to the big time schools, but like, all right, I'm sick of sitting here on the third spot in the depth chart. I'm a top player. Boom. Right. They go someplace else and make a difference. Whether it's Indiana or Colorado, it's I think the transfer portal has been great for college football and can allow a program to succeed faster. Just like I agree with that comment, and it can be done anywhere, especially if you're in a Big Ten program who's about to have a crap ton of Brinks trucks back up to it.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely. I don't know. I mean, it's difficult. Like, I mean, I think that you can see it work reasonably well, especially like early on a couple of weeks, and think, okay, everybody can do anything. And if you're not 3-0 right now, you should fire your guy and you should fire your AD, and nobody's taking things seriously. You can view it that as kind of like a, I don't want to say this fool's gold is not the word. Like, again, not everybody could get Dion, like, I don't know.
And there's only one Dion, let's be honest.
The thing is, like, Indiana has spent a lot more money on football. Like, we could talk about like IU's not really dedicated to
a lot more than they used to.
They're still, I mean, it's been competitive, especially when they're paying Allen. I mean, like, I think as much as everybody is sort of looking at this and saying, well, like, they're not taking it seriously. Well, like, part of what everybody's mad about is the fact is, like, they did pay the coach, and now if they want to get rid of him, they owe him a massive buyout. It's like the question is, are you willing to pay the guy, and then are you willing to pay him to go away if it doesn't work? Like, that's kind of the other issue is, like, I mean, like, Indiana took it seriously enough to, like, really jack up their head coach's pay, but now to the point where if they want to get rid of him, they have to give him an obnoxious amount of money. And 3 years ago, when he won Coach of the Year, you'd be like, well, now you have to pay him. Like, no, that's what the move everybody would have said you had to do, was pay this guy because, he's Coach of the Year. Look, I mean, like, he's LEO, like, all of this, is the most hope that you've seen in Indiana football in decades. And then it disappears so fast. And so it's difficult not just to get, but to sustain. And, like, and again, getting it, investing in it, in some cases you might end up putting yourself behind the 8 ball because you believed in what you had too much, and so that could easily happen with Colorado too. Colorado could easily decide that, like, man, Dion is the thing, and then go throw like $10 million a year at him or something. And then it doesn't work. You're on the
like Michigan State did.
What's that?
Like Michigan State,
yes,
they do?
Exactly. Not exactly, because I hope nothing like that. I hope I never read sentences like I read in the Michigan State story ever again, and I can't believe I've read them once. But yeah, I hopefully, yeah, no, I mean, Mel Tucker walks in, brings in Kenneth Walker as a transfer. Walker wins the Doak Walker Award, is absolutely amazing. They had just a phenomenal year. Where they win the Peach Bowl, they beat up on Pitt in that, I think it was. And now where are they? Like, again, like, like, all it takes is just to be wrong. Like, not much has to go wrong for you to end up in trouble. And so, like, you could easily say, like, well, if they can do it, we can do it, and we should do this, and we should do that, and we should do this. The thing is, you can do everything that you're supposed to do, and that actually puts you in worse shape.
I hear you.
Than you were beforehand. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, I think, obviously there's 100 things Indiana can do. They have to invest in NIL, obviously, in however ways you can do that. And that is not easy as far as a place where football is not traditionally the number one sport. Guys aren't necessary. It's not as easy to do basically to get people NIL opportunities when, like the football players are not the most famous guys in town or not even close to it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's never, like making these decisions is never easy. And sometimes you think you made the right call and you find out you made the wrong call, or you made what was the clear right call at the time and it doesn't go right. Like the brakes go against you after they were going forward. And next thing you know, you're in trouble.
Can you imagine Tom Allen and Lil Wayne leading the team out onto Memorial Stadium turf?
That'd be hilarious. I mean, it can happen. And like Deion's at a different level. He's a different level of superstar than we've seen anyplace else.
Yeah.
Would Deion have gone someplace like in your memory, like in the memory of Deion, and people my age, you remember when Colorado was good. Like it's
they had in the 90s, way back in the 90s.
You got to dig deep, but like I remember Cordell Stewart. And Cordell ended up coming to the Steelers, obviously, so that refreshes my memory. It's like a recent, but like, I mean, I remember Cordell.
I had a friend that used to live here where I live until he unfortunately passed last year, but he quarterbacked Colorado in 1949.
Jeez, wow.
Yes.
Amazing. But yeah, I mean, like, I could see how Deion looked at Colorado and said, "I remember Colorado. I know you can do it there." He would look at Indiana differently. And I know everyone's like, well, just throw all the money. And it's just like, again, like the money does. It's not that
Colorado's a very liberal place, but Bloomington's a liberal place. Indiana's not a liberal place. That's
not the issue. That's not the issue. Bringing a guy who's liberal would not be the issue. Bloomington's like, like it's just Berkeley tucked in next to Martinsville. I mean, like, it's not like, I mean, I lived in Bloomington, so. Yeah, I mean, you guys know, like, like if you guys are watching this from somewhere other than Bloomington, you know what you think of Bloomington. And if you're in Bloomington, never mind. I'm not gonna get myself in further trouble.
True that.
But like it's not a question of whether Bloomington would accept Deion as being a flashy character, and obviously, to put a very fine point on it, it's not like Indiana wouldn't accept
winning cures everything, baby.
Right. It's just, would you win or would you not win? And the thing about it is when you don't win, how big is your buyout? That's what it becomes. Because if you had to pay $10 million to get Deion in the door, okay, and you have 3 bad years, then you're on the hook for 4 more at $10 million per. And so that's the thing. It's just like if you guess wrong on somebody like that who had not coached at this point, but again, like I think Deion looked at Colorado and said, I remember Colorado being good, like I've seen it. It's happened before, I think I can do it there. Would he look at Indiana the same way? Probably not. So Indiana doesn't have the same kind of history. Colorado at least has some history. It's distant, but it's history. It's history, and he remembers a national championship Colorado football program.
Well, and we'll certainly find out as
how long this is going to go. Yeah,
because next week they take on Oregon in Eugene.
Now it gets real, and it gets to be a lot of fun.
Oh, then you've got Utah. I think he has to play. Does he have to play? Surely he has to play Washington and Michael Penix.
He's got to play all of them. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're going to have a loaded schedule they got to deal with. I mean, they're Pac-12.
And how crazy is it that the Pac-12 is so damn good?
Again, when it's going to go out, when it's going to fall apart.
Fizzling apart.
The last ride of the Pac-12 is going to be one of the funnest seasons we've ever seen for a conference, and that's going to just put into perspective just how poor of a job was done of running that league that you destroy it.
Unbelievable. What's up next for you? The Colts? We didn't get to talk about them, but a good weekend for them. Not a good weekend for Anthony Richardson. That boy's got to learn how to slide, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that game I missed, but yeah, no, like that's a rough one. When you win a game, you look really good, you show some of the things that you needed to see, and then you get busted up. But I guess you can beat bad teams with Gardner Minshew. You can't beat good teams.
Man, he may be the best backup in the NFL.
He's up there. One of the most experienced guys out there. He's won several places. That mustache will take you pretty far.
Enjoy your trip around the Golden Dome, my friend.
Will do. Thanks, you guys.
Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat as he does each week. And we appreciate him greatly. We've got more coming up. We'll hear from Jeff Brom, Tom Allen, Taven Jackson. Back with more after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
The transfer portal. Oh, man. Oh, boogers.
All right, I'm back.
I'm her.
All right, here we go.
Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop, Market and Table, a part of the Wow Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. How are you? Don't forget, brought to you by the Rusty Gator down in Bedford. Great Cajun cuisine, part of the Wow Food Group family of restaurants. Man, it was a freaking fun weekend. There were just so many good games. Watched a ton of football. Alabama, the top 50 or top 25 rather, out, and Alabama out of the top 10 for the first time in 8 years. First world problems. But buddy, let me tell you, down in Alabama, the sky is falling just because they dropped out of the top 10. But they didn't look good. They don't know who their quarterback is. You think Indiana had problems. I think Alabama went through 3 quarterbacks in this game. and don't know who's starting next week. So kind of funny. Michigan stays at number 2. Georgia remained at number 1, I guess I should have said. Texas, number 3. Florida State remains number 4 and still picked up a vote for number 1 after this weekend's performance was a little surprising. USC 5, Ohio State 6, Penn State 7, Washington 8, Notre Dame 9, and Oregon 10. If this were next year, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the top 10 teams from the Big Ten. Let's see. I think Iowa may have jumped up in there at the bottom. Yeah, they're number 24. Florida jumps into the top 25 after that big win over Tennessee in the Swamp. Man, that was a surprise. UCLA jumped in number 22. Washington State, number 21. Miami's at 20. Colorado, they dropped them to 19. Duke, 18. North Carolina, 17. Oklahoma, 16. Ole Miss, 15. So there you go. There's that. Not a big change in that. Right now, we're looking at Georgia, Michigan, Texas, Florida State. 4 different conferences leading the top 4. You know, if it ended today, you'd have the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC going at it. Of course, that's not going to stay that way. Michigan will have to play both number 6, Ohio State, number 7, Penn State, and then more than likely Iowa. The West that's kind of like once you get past playing Ohio State, Penn State, or vice versa, however that deal is, everything after that is almost a gimme.
And that's why I've been saying, and I think you kind of agree at this point, every game, when you disinclude the Big 3 in the Big Ten East, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, every game, if you're a competent team, is a winnable game this year in the Big Ten if you're not facing one of those 3 big guys.
Well, yeah, and that's good and bad. It's good for mediocrity, or not mediocrity, but for well, that's what it kind of is. It's mediocrity at some standard, but it's
you
also
want to be the top tier of the mediocre teams, I guess, is really what you're aiming for.
Well, it's there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? You know, when things are very, very similar. But big games this week. Last week, I think it was the top 10. There was not a top 10 team playing a game that was not a 14.
There were no ranked opponents other than Florida and Tennessee.
Parity. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, sir. There you
Bill.
go. Man, Bill jumping on it. He knows what I'm talking about. 5 lefts parity. As 5 lefts as well. Thank you very much, both of you. Appreciate you. But there are some big games this week. You've got number 6 Ohio State at number 9 Notre Dame. Top 10 matchup. Number 15 Ole Miss goes to Alabama, while the Crimson Tide lead that series 9-3 when they both are ranked. They're not looking all that great right now. Number 22 UCLA goes to number 11 Utah. Number 19, Colorado, now goes to visit number 10, Oregon, and they're, without question, their toughest challenge of the year, period. And that would have been with Travis Hunter, and they're not going to have him. Oregon State now at number 14. They're going to number 21, Washington State, who's looking really good. Those are the 2 left behinds from the Pac-12. They've played 98 times, but never before when both teams have been ranked. How about that? You want to talk
insane.
About the Pac-12 going out with a bang? You've got the 2 leftovers playing, and they've never been ranked at the same time when they played each other, ever. What is that? Colorado, 1, 2, 3. How many of the Pac? I was just going to, it doesn't show me there, but Iowa, number 24, Iowa goes at Penn State, number 7, Penn State. So there's a Big Ten clash. 3 of the past.
That'll be
games.
Iowa. I don't know what their crossover games look like, but that'll be one of the Big Ten West's probably only good chance to show that they may have a competitor on their side if they can do something against Penn State.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly what their crossover game looks like once it pulls up, maybe eventually. Oh, there it is. I'm looking at it. Penn State, of course, this week. Michigan State, easy. Purdue, easy.
Purdue's
at Wisconsin. Oh, no, it's not even a crossover, but it's an easy game. Oh, my God. Iowa plays nobody.
Who's their other crossover after Michigan State?
Rutgers.
Okay. And Rutgers might be decent this year. We don't know. They're
Stop
unproven.
it.
They're unbeaten.
Stop it.
No, I'm not going to stop it because we don't know. We're 3 weeks into the season.
Dude, when it comes to Iowa, no. Not.
Do I think Rutgers is going to win the Big Ten East? No.
No,
But
I
do
know
think
that.
they
I'm
could be
just saying.
competent?
I'm sitting here
Potentially,
looking
might
at
be
this Iowa schedule, and I'm like, oh, my goodness. You want to talk about a schedule handed down by God. Utah State, they won. Iowa State, a rivalry game. I'll give you that one. They won that one 20-13. Then Western Michigan. Now they have to go at number 7 Penn State. That's a tough game. It's a 7:30. It's a night game. That may be Penn State's whiteout. I don't know. That's going to be a game that they probably lose without question. But then you've got, Michigan State's a crossover. They got Michigan State and Rutgers as their 2 other crossover games.
Yep. I tell you what, they do have in terms of favorability.
Purdue.
They only have 4 road games. Only 4 road games and 8 home games.
How is that possible?
It happens very rarely. It happened once for Indiana under Kevin Wilson. I don't remember what season that was in, but I do remember them having a year with 8 home games. It only happened one time, though.
You're right. That's nuts. How in the hell do they get?
Once they enter from October 21st through October 18th, they play 4 home games in a row.
That is, I'll tell you how part of it's possible. You schedule your 3 non-con games against teams you don't have to ever travel to.
That's not what they did because they traveled to Iowa State.
Oh, well, that one you can't. Yeah, you can't help because that's a rivalry game. You're right. So are they ended up with an extra home conference game somehow?
They must have had a makeup. There may have been a makeup of some sort from, I don't know, missing out on a game due to COVID and having to make a return trip. I don't know. I don't know how that works for them or what they may have had happen with their schedule, but it's interesting. It is. For
I
sure.
just don't see. I've never seen a weaker West Conference than this season, a West Division than this season.
I just
talk
can't
about
how
weak
many.
it is.
Yeah.
It's part of it is so many new coaches. Nebraska, new coach. Illinois, second-year coach. Northwestern, new coach. Minnesota, not new coach. Wisconsin, new coach. Purdue, new coach. Michigan State, even though it's not in the West, new coach. So they're playing against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 conference opponents that have new coaches. 6. Half their schedule. 3. That's 66% of their Big Ten schedule against teams with new coaches. You want to talk about now that's going to change next year, and I can't wait to see what Iowa gets. Iowa is, for whatever reason, has always gotten an easy go of it. I mean, look at Purdue. They've got to play Penn State and No, it's Ohio State and Michigan this year. That's tough. But Iowa, for whatever reason, they get away with these. But that's going to change when you bring in 4 new teams next year: USC, UCLA, or Oregon, and Washington. You can't escape. Then you'll have Penn State. There's no way they can escape. It's going to be interesting to see the scheduling. I cannot wait. It also is just Indiana can be a good football program. Saw that Louisville game showed that to me. They have, Don talks about their transfers. They have good players on this team. Are they the best in the conference? No. But are they? They have talent. They have talent. They have talent on both sides of the ball, and could have won that game against Louisville. So there's a win you've let go. And now you have got to really pay attention, because you'll have Michigan State, Maryland, Rutgers. Those are 3 games that you have to win. Currently at 1-2 right now. And I think you have to win. Well, Purdue's on the road. Illinois is on the road. You've got a Wisconsin team at home.
You've got to win 4 out of the 6 games that include Maryland, Rutgers, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan State, and Purdue. That's what it comes down to. You'll beat Akron next week. Michigan, Penn State, you can go ahead. I don't want to say right off because you still have to play the game, but assume those are losses. And if they are, then you got to win 4 of 6.
I mean, Michigan, Penn State, yes, losses.
Yeah, you got to win 4 of 6.
Maryland's going to be tough. I don't know what.
Maryland, I think, is the toughest team of the ones that I mentioned that are winnable right now. And Rutgers may be the second toughest. I really don't know, because after that, Wisconsin, I think Rutgers, Wisconsin's a very even matchup. Illinois is very much down. Michigan State, Indiana, I think should I don't want to say they'll be favored, but I think they should win that game. And I think they should beat Purdue. I don't care if it's on the road. I think you should beat Purdue this year, at least from what we've seen so far.
I won't against Maryland right now. I know it has Maryland at 70. This is looking at ESPN's predictor, matchup predictor, 72% on the Maryland side. Does it mean, I don't know, I'm just giving you some information. All right, so Michigan, I'm going to skip. Rutgers, that gives Rutgers a 55% matchup predictor win side. So next, I'm going to skip Penn State. I'm going to go to Wisconsin. 64% Wisconsin win predictor. Illinois, 61% Illinois win predictor. Michigan State, 52% Michigan State win predictor. And Purdue is a 56% win predictor for them. Not a single
right now,
game.
ESPN's essentially saying Indiana's going to go 2-10 based on all of that.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, if that is the case, right now I don't think that'll happen. But I mean, you never know. Then it's time to move on from the Tom Allen era.
Well, I'm not even talking about that at the moment. I'm just talking about that. We've got to take a break. We'll talk more about it, and we'll hear from Tom Allen and the previous people mentioned, Taven Jackson, Jeff Brum. After this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Holy smokes.
I think I saw what's the early spread on Indiana Akron? 17, favoring Indiana, hammer that. I think Indiana will win by more than 17 against Akron. And maybe they are better than they typically are, but
who, Akron?
Yeah, but I hammer that negative 17 in favor of Indiana, I think. What do they look like defensively? Let's see. It's only shown me offense. Oh, well.
Fresno State shutting out Arizona State.
Fresno State's good.
They're 3-0, man. I went 5-5. Bad week for me.
I know I didn't put mine into the thing, but I know mine wouldn't have been very good either.
We do have. I'm tied for 15th now.
All right, here we go.
For all returning students, no matter where you go to school, at the Golf Club at Eagle Point, students can play for the rest of 2023 for just $299. That's right, play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Appreciate you being with us. Oh, it's been a fun one. Quick look into the ISB college football pick'em, and we have a single leader at the top. Oh, listen to Pete. It must be. Oh my goodness, I'm about to get down to that one. That's going to make me mad. But Justin, JB, Justin Beard, you're up there all alone, man. He has a 2-win lead at the top. Went 9-1 last week. He's 25-5 over the first 3 weeks. Out of 10 picks each week, out of 30. So he is kicking tail, baby. Andrew J., you are right there. 23-7. Andrew Jones, Brent Absher, 23-7 also. Caleb, right behind him at 22-8. Mark right there, 22-8. Brian P is 22-8. So is Bill. Over under. The over-under man. There you go. Bill over-under man. 22-8. Jason W. from Fort Wayne, 22-8. Ethan P, 22-8. Kent, you're 21-9. Fred, 21-9. Ethan, 21-9. Jason and Steven, both 21-9. Then you get down there where I am. 20-10. 80%. Not good enough. That puts me in a tie with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us for 15th, including Clay and Bob and some Pete Clownson. Oh, it's Clausen. I'm sorry. Just kidding. Old buddy Pete jumping there. Bill jumping in there. Tied with me as well. Man, it was a bad week for me. I went 5-5. I picked Kansas State to beat Missouri. Boy, that was an upset. They lost 30-27. I had LSU over Mississippi State. I picked Virginia Tech to beat Rutgers. I thought I'd go for the upset. Wrong. I did pick North Carolina correctly. I also lost on Tennessee down in the swamp, man. I thought the Boilers were better than they are. I missed on that one. I got West Virginia. I missed on I thought Houston would take care of TCU, and that was not a good pick. I did get Colorado barely. That was a 99% pick too, and it barely won. And then Fresno State over Arizona State. So 5-5 for me. Just go to ESPN to the right, fantasy tab down below that, college pick'em. You can jump right in. Jump in there, man. We'll try to average it, but make it worth your while just to have fun, if nothing else. Brad, jump in. Just jump in. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It doesn't show this week's games yet, I guess, does it? Wait a minute. Let me go to the top. Hit week 4. A little too early, it says. Yep, we are. I mentioned some of the games coming up. Wisconsin is at Purdue this week. Man, Purdue has just not shown up yet. They've surprised me a little bit. I thought that they would be a little bit better than they are, but they haven't been. Ohio State travels to Notre Dame. That's going to be a good game. John, do you have that sound, by the way?
Of which one?
Any of them?
I've got all of them.
All right, great. First of all, let's hear what Jeff Brom, the coach of Louisville, had to say.
Give me 2 seconds, but yes, here we go.
Well, when it was at the 2, we had an idea.
By the way, this is on the goal line stand.
It's probably going to be a pass or play action or get out on the edge. When it got to a half yard, we thought either quarterback sneak first, and then when the big back came in, then that was the second choice. So we worked on our goal line package. We had a lot of big bodies in there. We stemmed at the last minute to try to get him to snap it early. I don't know if it affected him a little bit or not, but we got in there. So because of the stem and movement, we got in there quick, penetrated, and stopped the run. And they really did a great job with it. So that's not easy to do. So that's just all out effort and some good coaching by our defensive coaches, and we had to have it to win.
Yeah, they got in there because they had enough time to get in there. But Taven Jackson did such an incredible job. Coach Tom Allen's didn't second guess the call after the game, of course. Hard for him to do that, but let's hear what Tom had to say.
Yeah, you could have run a quarterback sneak or run, your base power play, whatever. And so we obviously chose to run, not to sneak. And so, yeah, obviously since it didn't work, you want to run the other one. We scored previously on the other one. So, didn't work. So,
yeah, scored on the other one. That's all I'll say on that. Taven Jackson, of course, this kid, he's going to be good. He is good. He has a good mentality. He sounds like he can handle the spotlight, and he sounds like the guy that you want taking the snaps. That's for sure. Here's what Taven Jackson had to say after the Louisville.
Yeah, I think once we start playing fast, I'm used to that. So I think it's just brings out all of us as a group of quarterbacks and receivers. We all know how to play fast, and when we play fast, we play free. And I think the receivers did a phenomenal job getting help.
That was Taven Jackson there talking after the game. So, yep, it's a lot of that will be going on this week. We'll hear more as today as they have the press conference today. Tomorrow we'll talk more about Indiana offering their latest, and that goes to Nate Ament, a 6'7" wing forward from Virginia, number 37 in Rivals 150, as he receives an IU offer. And the Boogie Flan recruitment's going to come down to Indiana and Kentucky. We'll talk about that more tomorrow as well. Cannot thank you enough. Big thanks to Don Fischer, Dustin Dopirak as well. Thanks to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. We'll be back tomorrow to do it again. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.